close your eyes. Imagine the world before the hum of electricity, a world where the only light was the flickering orange of a dying hearth, and the only sound was the soft, rhythmic breath of the forest. Tonight, you aren't just listening to a story. You are stepping into a centuries-old tradition of finding peace in the dark. In the 1800s, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm didn't write these tales for children's books. They gathered them from the whispers of weary travelers and the elders of the Black Forest. These are the original echoes of human history narratives, designed to anchor the mind and quiet the soul. As we retrace their footsteps through the misty German valleys, the modern world begins to dissolve. There is no clock to watch, no task to finish. There is only the weight of the blankets and the ancient magic of a voice in the night. The history we explore tonight isn't found in cold marble monuments or the dates of bloody battles. It is a living, breathing history, woven into the very fabric of the tales that have tucked farmers, scholars, and wanderers into bed for hundreds of years. The brothers Grimm were more than just scholars. They were keepers of the human spirit's need for wonder. They understood that when the sun sets, the human mind craves a different kind of truth, one that speaks in symbols, in magic, and in the quiet justice of a life well lived. As you settle deeper into your pillow, let the gravity of the past gently pull you down. You are joining a lineage of listeners that stretches back through time. Think of the thousands who, over 2 centuries, have found solace in these same rhythms, their heartbeats slowing just as yours is now. This is a sanctuary of sound. The modern world, with its frantic pace and neon lights, is miles away from this clearing in the woods. Here, time doesn't move in a straight line. It circles like the hawks above the Rhine. It flows like the deep, dark rivers that carve their way through the ancient stone of the German countryside. Everything about this journey is intentional. The words are chosen to cradle your thoughts, allowing them to drift away from the stresses of today and toward the timeless landscapes of the 19th century. You might find that some of these paths feel familiar, like a trail you walked long ago in a dream. Others may feel new, like a hidden meadow you've just discovered behind a veil of morning mist. It doesn't matter where the path leads, for every turn is a step away from tension and a step toward the profound stillness that only history and storytelling can provide. As the air in your room becomes cool and steady, allow yourself to become a part of this ancient circle. The walls of the present are thinning, turning into the moss-covered stones of a cottage or the towering pines of a forgotten wood. The gateway to the past is opening, not with a roar, but with a sigh. Your journey into the heart of the old world is ready to begin. Feel the boundaries of your surroundings expand, merging with the soft velvet of a night that has seen 1,000 stories told. As the world outside fades, let your inner world expand. Imagine now that you are standing at the edge of an ancient woodland, the Black Forest of the 19th century, just as the brothers Grimm would have seen it in their quiet, scholarly travels. It is the hour of deep twilight, where the sky has surrendered its last traces of blue to a profound, bruised purple, and a silver mist is beginning to curl lazily around the gnarled, mossy roots of the towering pine. The air here is entirely different from the world you left behind. It is thick with the scent of damp earth, crushed pine needles, and the faint, sweet aroma of wild moss waking in the night. As you take your first slow, deliberate step onto the soft, needle-strewn path, you feel a profound sense of belonging wash over you like a gentle tide. The forest does not demand anything of your mind. It does not ask for your attention, your memory, or your energy. It simply exists, a vast and silent witness to the passage of centuries, inviting you to disappear into its rhythmic eternal silence. With every slow step you take into this misty green world, your body feels a little heavier, a little more grounded into the cooling earth. The moss beneath your feet is like a thick, hand-woven velvet cushion, absorbing the sound of your movement until even your own footsteps become a silent, distant memory. The high branches far above are swaying in a slow-motion dance, whispering secrets in a language of sighs that only the heart can understand. The mist is cool against your skin, a gentle, damp touch that seems to wash away the lingering static of the modern day, smoothing out the jagged wrinkles of your thoughts. You are walking deeper into the heart of history now, moving away from the frantic noise of the present, and toward the quiet, enduring truths of the natural world. The trees around you are ancient guardians, their bark thick and weathered like the skin of old giants, their roots reaching deep into the dark, nourishing soil, where time itself seems to settle and pool. Focus now on your breath, the steady, effortless rise and fall of your chest. It is the most natural rhythm in the existence of the world. As you inhale, imagine drawing in the clean silver mist of the forest, filling every cell of your body with a sense of antique peace. And as you exhale, imagine a single golden leaf detaching itself from a high, silent branch, drifting slowly, lazily through the still air, turning over and over in a dream-like descent until it finally rests upon the damp forest floor. Each breath out is a leaf falling from a tree, a small release, a quiet surrender of something no longer needed. The forest floor is carpeted with millions of these releases, a soft, deep bed of gold and bronze that cushions the entire world. With every falling leaf, your mind becomes a little clearer, a little more distant, and your heart rate begins to synchronize with the slow, steady, subterranean pulse of the woods. The deeper you go, the more the shadows seem to embrace you with a kind of forgotten tenderness. They are not dark or frightening, but soft, protective, and heavy, like a thick wool cloak wrapped around your shoulders to ward off the evening chill. The mist begins to glow with a faint ethereal light, catching the last remnants of the sun's memory and turning the woods into a gallery of soft focus and blurred edges. You find yourself noticing the smallest, most peaceful details, the way a silver spider web hangs heavy with dew, the way the moonlight catches the jagged, mossy edge of an ancient rock, the distant, muffled hoot of an owl that sounds like a call from a dream you once had. Everything is slowed down here. The frantic, jagged pace of your daily thoughts has been replaced by the slow, tectonic movement of the clouds and the gradual, inevitable cooling of the earth as it prepares for sleep. You are moving in perfect harmony with the ghosts of the past, drifting through a landscape that has forgotten the meaning of haste. Your eyes are becoming as heavy as the ancient stones of a medieval castle, those great weathered blocks of granite that have stood for 1,000 years, unmoved by the howling wind or the driving rain. Feel that massive, peaceful heaviness spreading through your limbs, pulling you down into a state of profound and total relaxation. Your arms feel long and still by your side. Your legs are anchored to the earth by a pleasant leaden weight that makes movement feel like a distant, unnecessary concept. The mist is thicker now, swirling in slow white rivers around your knees, guiding you with a gentle hand toward a small, warm light, flickering in the distance. It is a humble light, steady and inviting, shining through the small paned window of a timber-framed cottage, nestled safely between the roots of 2 giant, protective oaks. This is a place of absolute sanctuary, a place where the simple, honest labor of the hands meets the quiet, restorative magic of the night. The sharp scent of the pine forest begins to give way to the smell of wood smoke and aged, tanned leather, a comforting, earthly aroma that speaks of home, safety, and the end of a long journey. The path leads you directly to the heavy wooden door, its surface worn smooth and soft by the touch of many hands over many years. The forest behind you has gone completely silent now, wrapped in its thick blanket of mist and fallen leaves, watching over you with 1,000 years of patience as you reach the end of your walk. Everything is still. Everything is safe. Everything is as it should be. And in this forest, in this moment of perfect stillness, we find the first cabin, the shoemaker's home. Inside this humble cottage, the air is thick with the comforting, nostalgic scent of aged oak wood, warmed beeswax, and well-worn leather. The room is small, intimate, and illuminated only by the rhythmic, low-frequency pulsing of a dying hearth, where the embers glow like a bed of fallen stars buried in soft, gray ash. There is a deep, resonant stillness here, a kind of peace that feels as though the house itself is holding its breath, protecting the silence of the night. You can almost hear the soft, tectonic settling of the wooden beams overhead and the faint, rhythmic ticking of an old brass clock that seems to measure time in heartbeats rather than seconds. The shoemaker, a man of quiet dignity and silver hair that catches the amber firelight, just laid out his very last piece of leather upon the workbench. He is not a leasing man of great wealth, but he is a man of immense quiet gratitude. As he brushes the invisible dust from the smooth, cool surface of the dark hide, he feels no fear for the coming morning. He simply sighs, a sound of pure surrender to the night, and retreats to his bed, leaving the world in the hands of the unseen, knowing that the darkness is not an end, but a sanctuary. As the moon climbs to its highest point in the ink-blue sky, casting long silvery fingers across the workshop floor, the ancient magic of the midnight hour begins to stir in the corners of the room. Out of the long shadows, two tiny figures appear, elves as light as thistledown and as quick as a fleeting thought. They do not speak in words. Their language is one of fluid movement and divine precision. They hop onto the workbench, their small, nimble hands moving with a speed that defies the waking eye, yet with a grace that is entirely soothing to witness. There is a beautiful hypnotic rhythm to their labor that fills the room like a soft melody. Stitch, pull, tap, night. Stitch, pull, tap, tap. The sound is no louder than the pitter-patter of spring rain against a leaded window pane, a gentle percussive lullaby that echoes the slow heartbeat of the sleeping house. They work with a joy that is entirely selfless, their tiny needles flashing in the moonlight like sparks of silver fire captured in a jar. They are not burdened by the weight of the past or the anxiety of the future. They exist only in the exquisite tactile presence of the craft, absorbed in the feel of the thread and the grain of the leather. They take the leather, which only hours ago was a silent, inanimate object, and begin to breathe life and purpose into it. You can almost feel the texture of the material under their tiny, expert fingers, the rough grain of the underside, the silkiness of the waxed thread, the cold, smooth steel of the awl as it pierces the skin. They work with an ancient, instinctive knowledge, as if the shoes they are creating already exist in the spirit of the wood, and they are simply uncovering them for the world to see. Stitch, pull, tap. Stitch, pull, tap. The repetition is a form of deep meditation, a slow-motion cycle of creation that requires no effort from the world outside. The elves are the architects of a quiet miracle, moving in perfect silent synchronization, their small shadows dancing against the timbered walls in a slow, graceful ballet of industry. They are the personification of the quiet forces that look after us when we are too weary to look after ourselves, the hidden hands that mend the world while we dream. As the first gray velvet light of dawn begins to bleed through the frost-covered window, the work is finally finished. There, on the workbench where only a single piece of leather had been laid the night before, stands a pair of shoes so perfect, so elegant, that they seem to glow with an inner celestial light. The stitches are so small they are nearly invisible to the naked eye, as fine as the veins in a winter leaf or the delicate patterns of frost on a morning pane. There is a profound reveal in this moment, a soft realization that settles into the soul like morning dew. Kindness is a quiet, invisible force that works while we sleep. It does not shout for attention. It does not demand recognition or praise. It moves in the deep silences, in the gaps between our worries, repairing the frayed edges of our lives with a thread of pure, shimmering light. The shoemaker wakes to find his burden lifted, not by a grand gesture of fate, but by the meticulous, silent grace of the small and the forgotten. The shoes are sold by midday to a traveler who feels as though he is walking on air, and with the copper coins, the shoemaker buys more leather enough for 2 pairs, then 4, then 8. But the miracle does not stop with the wealth. Every night, as the village falls into its deep slumber, the ritual repeats. Every night, the soft stitch, pull, tap continues in the silver darkness, a constant rhythm of care and precision. The shoemaker and his wife, moved by a deep, aching sense of gratitude, decide to watch one night from behind a heavy linen curtain. They see the tiny shivering elves working in the biting cold of the winter night, and their hearts overflow with a desire to give back to those who have given so much. They do not seek to capture the magic or exploit it. They only wish to offer warmth and comfort in return. The wife spends her days sewing tiny coats of the finest green wool, with buttons as small as mustard seeds, while the shoemaker fashions miniature boots of the softest, most supple calfskin. When the elves find these gifts upon the workbench, their joy is a silent, shimmering thing that lights up the shadows. They don the cloth and leather, dancing across the floor and out into the moonlight with a playful, ethereal energy, never to be seen again, yet leaving behind a house that is forever blessed by the memory of their service. The air in the cottage remains sweet, the wood remains warm, and the shoemaker's hands never lose the skill they learned from watching the midnight visitors. The shoes that remain in the shop are now wonders of the world, spoken of in whispers across the kingdom. Imagine the feeling of sliding your hand over the finished leather of one of these masterpieces. It is as smooth as a polished river stone, yet warm and supple as a living thing. The soles are sturdy, designed for long thoughtful walks on ancient winding roads, and the laces are made of braided silk that feels like cool water between your tired fingers. Every stitch is a testament to the idea that nothing is too small to be done with love, and that the quietest acts of service are often the most powerful. The shop is no longer a place of scarcity or fear, but a sanctuary of abundance and peace, filled with the deep grounding scent of beeswax, cedarwood, and the lingering presence of magic. The shoemaker sits by his fire every evening, his heart as full as his cupboards, listening to the soft howl of the wind outside. He knows now that he is never truly alone in the dark, that the universe has a mysterious way of mending what is broken, if we only provide the quiet space for the menders to arrive. The prosperity of the shoemaker spreads through the village, like the slow, inevitable warmth of a rising sun in spring. People come from miles away just to stand in the quiet doorway of the shop, hoping to catch a lingering scent of the midnight magic or to feel the stillness that resides within its walls. The world feels a little safer tonight, a little more balanced, as if the simple repetitive act of the elves has recalibrated the scales of justice and mercy for everyone. You can feel that same balance settling into your own body now, a heavy golden peace that anchors you to your bed. The safety of the cottage, the fading warmth of the hearth, and the rhythmic memory of the stitching have created a thick, protective cocoon of absolute security around you. You are held by the story, just as the shoemaker was held by the night. The shoemaker's journey is a bridge, a gentle, sloping transition from the humble, flickering reality of the village to the grand, sweeping vistas of the wider world that lies beyond the forest. As the shoemaker prospers in his quiet corner of history, our minds begin to wander further, drifting across the rolling hills and toward the towering spires of distant castles. As the shoemaker prospers, we travel further into the kingdom of kings. The morning sun streams through the leaded glass of a small workshop window, casting a long rectangular patch of brilliant amber light across a wooden table that has seen decades of quiet, honest labor. In the center of this warmth sits a simple ceramic jar of plum jam, its deep purple surface glistening like a polished amethyst in the early light, untouched and perfect. The air in the room is perfectly still, heavy with the scent of old wood and iron, save for the lazy, low-frequency hum of a few summer flies circling the sweet, sticky scent. A sound that feels like the very vibration of a quiet, slow-moving afternoon in a world that has forgotten how to hurry. A young tailor sits at this table, his back straight but relaxed, his needle moving in a steady, hypnotic rhythm through a piece of sturdy flaxen cloth. He is a man of small stature, but vast, sprawling imagination, a dreamer who finds stories in the patterns of the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. As he swats away the persistent flies with a single casual strike of his hand, he finds himself suddenly marveled by his own unexpected prowess. 7 at one blow. The phrase takes root in his mind, not as a boast of violence, but as a spark of inevitable quiet destiny. He stitches the words onto a silken belt, in bold golden thread, cinching it tight around his waist, as if buckling on a completely new identity, a new way of walking through the world. With nothing but a small, dry crust of cold cheese in his pocket, and a tiny, frightened bird tangled in a nearby thicket for company, he steps out of his cramped quarters and into the enormous, unfolding map of the wide and mysterious world. As the tailor leaves the familiar worn cobblestones of his village behind, the horizon begins to expand in a way that feels both exhilarating and profoundly daunting. The gentle, rolling green hills of the lowlands, dotted with sleeping sheep and quiet orchards, slowly give way to the foothills of the great mountains, the jagged gray spine of the world, where the rocks are the color of heavy thunderclouds, and the air turns crisp, thin, and ancient. You can feel the change in the atmosphere as you walk alongside him in the cool, long shadows. The cozy enclosed scent of the workshop is replaced by the vast oceanic smell of high-altitude pines, damp earth, and cold frozen stone that has never known the warmth of a human heart. The scale of everything around you begins to shift and grow, stretching the limits of your vision. The trees here are not the friendly, sheltering oaks of the valley, but towering, dark spires of evergreen that seem to prop up the very vault of the sky itself. The path becomes steeper and more narrow with every mile, winding through deep, moss-covered gorges where the sun only reaches the floor for a single fleeting hour at midday. This is a landscape built for giants, a place where every stray boulder is the size of a village cottage, and every sudden freezing gust of wind sounds like the low echoing horn of a long-forgotten mountain king. The journey upward into the heart of the peaks is a study in monumental, heavy silence, a silence so deep it feels as though it has weight. Occasionally, this profound stillness is broken by the deep subterranean groan of a shifting glacier, or the sharp distant crack of a frost-split rock, sounds that only emphasize just how small and delicate a lone human truly is in the face of deep, geological time. The tailor, however, does not feel diminished by the gargantuan scale of the mountains. He feels invited by them, his small steps echoing the steady rhythm of a heart that refuses to be afraid of the vastness. He climbs higher and higher, moving past the thinning tree line where the world is stripped down to its essential raw elements: gray stone, white snow, and the infinite pale blue of the high ether. It is here, amidst the jagged peaks that pierce the clouds like the silver teeth of the earth, that he encounters the first of the giants. The giant sits upon a high, jagged ridge, his head nearly level with the passing white clouds, his breath smelling of wet granite and the sharp ozone of old thunderstorms. To such a massive creature, a mountain is a mere stool, and a vast ancient forest is but a carpet of soft green moss. The tailor looks up, his neck straining against the weight of the immense sky, and realizes that in this world of massive proportions and heavy stones, the small, narrow rules of the valley no longer apply. He is in a realm where thought must be as large as the landscape. The interaction between the small man and the gargantuan inhabitant of the heights is like a slow, deliberate dance between a sparrow and a mountain ridge. The giant, amused and deeply skeptical of the tailor's tiny, fragile presence, challenges him to feats of raw, elemental strength that would easily crush any ordinary man into the dust. He picks up a heavy ancient stone and squeezes it with his massive calloused fist until water drips from its stony pores like cold tears. The tailor, unfazed and steady, reaches into his pocket and secretively squeezes his soft white cheese until the whey runs out, mimicking the miracle with a clever, quiet deception that requires no muscle at all. The giant, scowling, hurls a massive rock so high into the air that it vanishes from sight for many minutes, lost in the glare of the sun, before crashing back to earth with a bone-shaking thud. The tailor simply releases his hidden bird, which flies up into the endless blue ether, and never returns, convincing the giant that he has thrown a stone so far it bypassed the very gravity of the earth. In these moments, the hidden catch-bien of the world is rewritten before your eyes. You can feel a mental shift, a soft, warm expansion of the mind. Wit is more powerful than strength when the world is large. True power does not lie in the size of the fist or the thickness of the muscle, but in the clarity of the vision and the effortless, silent agility of the thought. The giant, now curious and somewhat wary of this small magical being, invites the tailor to spend the night in a cave that feels like the hollowed-out heart of the entire world. The ceiling is lost in a permanent swirling gloom of damp mist, and the bed provided for the tailor is a massive flat slab of cold grey stone that could easily hold 100 men without crowding. As the tailor hides in a dark, safe corner, Watching the giant attempt to crush the bed in the middle of the night with a heavy iron bar, there is a profound sense of total immersion in our journey. We are deep within the belly of the earth, surrounded by the raw, unrefined forces of nature that move at a much slower, more ancient pace than our own. The air in the cave is heavy, cool, and damp, smelling of ancient mineral deposits, wet iron, and the slow, rhythmic snoring of a creature whose lungs are like giant bellows. Yet, even here, in the cold heart of the giant's domain, there is a strange and total safety in the tailor's cleverness. He is the master of the shadows, the one who effortlessly navigates the narrow gaps and hidden spaces that the clumsy, massive giants cannot even perceive. He is safe because he is small, and he is powerful because he is quiet. As the first light of a high-altitude dawn breaks over the jagged peaks, painting the eternal snow in shades of pale rose, violet, and shimmering gold, the tailor makes his quiet, rhythmic escape, leaving the confused giants behind in their world of unyielding stone. He begins his long, steady descent, moving from the realm of the gargantuan back toward the comforting, familiar scale of men. The path takes him down through the sliding scree and the thinning air, back into the warm, fragrant embrace of the high meadows where the wildflowers begin to appear in great, colorful drifts, vibrant blues, deep yellows, and rich, royal purples that look like jewels scattered carelessly on a green velvet robe. The transition is incredibly soothing and rhythmic, like a song hummed under the breath. With every mile he descends, the pressure in your ears equalizes, and the air grows warmer and more fragrant with the heavy scent of wild thyme, crushed clover, and sun-warmed grass. The terrifying grandeur of the peaks softens into the gentle protective embrace of the high valleys, where the streams are clear as liquid glass, and the shadows of the clouds move like slow, peaceful ghosts across the swaying, emerald grass. He arrives eventually at the king's court, not as a humble, dusty craftsman, but as a legendary figure of mystery and power, the man who conquered the giants with nothing but his belt and his bravado. The world of the court is one of intricate, delicate detail, thick, heavy tapestries that tell the silent stories of old kings and lost kingdoms, polished marble floors that reflect the steady, warm light of 1,000 wax candles, and the soft, rhythmic rustle of silk against silk in the quiet hallways. But the tailor remains unchanged by the sudden opulence, his eyes still holding the distant, cool reflection of the high peaks where he proved his true worth. He has learned through his long solitary walk that the world is vast beyond all measure, and that his place in it is determined not by his physical height, but by the quiet, unshakable strength of his heart. The tension of the mountain climb has fully evaporated now, replaced by a deep, intellectual satisfaction that settles into your bones like warmth from a fire. The mind has been stretched by the heights, and now finds a perfect resting comfort in the valley. The evening settles slowly and surely over the palace gardens, where the stone fountains pulse with a steady, hypnotic splash, and the colorful peacocks retreat to the low, sturdy branches of the ancient cedar trees to dream. The air is perfectly still and heavy with peace, the heat of the busy day having been traded for the cool indigo promise of a very long night. The tailor sits by a high, arched stone window, watching the first silver stars emerge over the distant dark mountains he once climbed, feeling a profound sense of completion and absolute rest. He is no longer just a man who sews pieces of cloth together with thread. He is a man who has sewn the very fabric of his own destiny into the history of the land. The palace is quiet. The torches are flickering low in their brackets. The guards are nodding peacefully at their posts, and the king is sound asleep in his great velvet-draped golden bed. The world is at perfect rest, balanced between the memory of the giants and the reality of the warm, glowing hearth. The tailor closes his eyes, his long journey having finally brought him to a place of ultimate belonging and silence. The path leads us away from the giants, and toward a strange musical quartet of travelers on a dusty road of their own. Leave the grand, stone-carved palace of the tailor behind for a moment, and imagine yourself standing on the soft, mossy bank of a slow-moving river that winds its way through the very heart of the ancient forest. The water here is deep, clear, and as dark as polished obsidian, reflecting the silver sliver of the high moon and the silent, watchful stars that have guided travelers for 1,000 years. There is no rush here, no sense of urgency or time. The river moves with a deliberate, ancient patience, flowing over smooth, rounded river stones, and under the sprawling, protective roots of old weeping willows that dip their long emerald fingers into the cool current. The sound of the water is a continuous, low-frequency, hum-a-liquid, silver lullaby that seems to vibrate within the very air you breathe, filling your senses with a profound and heavy stillness. It is a sound of constant, gentle change, and yet eternal, comforting sameness, a soft shushing of the reeds that tells the entire world to be still and let go. As you listen to the rhythmic, hypnotic lap of the water against the soft shore, notice how the stories we have shared tonight begin to merge with the flow of the stream. The memories of the shoemaker's tiny, industrious elves and the tailor's towering mountain giants are not lost. They are simply being carried away by the current, drifting like colorful autumn leaves upon the glassy surface of the dark water. Every word spoken tonight, every vivid image that has flickered across the screen of your mind, is now a part of this gentle, unstoppable movement toward peace. The sound of the water is the sound of time itself, slowing down, stretching out, and matching the slow, steady pace of your own resting heart. Feel the coolness of the river mist against your brow, a soft and damp veil that carries the scent of fresh rain, crushed wild mint, and water-soaked wood, drawing you deeper and deeper and deeper into a state of weightless, shimmering tranquility. There is a soft, shifting reveal in the way the water moves through the shadows. You realize now, as you stand in the warm velvet darkness, that you are not merely an observer on the bank. You are the river itself. Your thoughts are the water fluid, effortless and deep, carrying these ancient stories toward the vast starlit sea of total sleep. You do not need to hold on to the small details or grasp at the fading meaning of the words. You only need to flow with the tide. The stories move through you, washing over the tired, jagged edges of your mind, smoothing away the remaining flickers of the day, until everything within you is as polished, calm, and silent as a stone at the bottom of a deep, forgotten pool. You are moving toward a place of total surrender, where the boundaries between the story and the dreamer begin to dissolve into a single shimmering tide of golden peace. Rest now in the absolute, unshakable knowledge of your own physical safety. You are tucked away in a sanctuary of sound and history, protected by the heavy, silent canopy of the trees and the steady, unchanging song of the cooling earth. Your bed is your anchor, a warm, soft, and silent harbor where the frantic currents of the waking world cannot reach you. The air in this forest is a quiet gift, pure, heavy, and rich with the essence of the night, filling your lungs with a sense of quiet power and deep, restorative rest. There is nothing left for you to do, nowhere left for you to go, but to exist in this perfect flow, letting the water carry you further away from the noise and closer to the soft indigo horizon of your deepest dreams. Every muscle in your body is loose and heavy. Every breath you take is a long sigh of absolute contentment, and the darkness around you is a kind, familiar, and welcoming friend. The river continues its long, slow journey, leading your mind away from the high peaks and the royal courts, back toward the humble, dusty roads that crisscross the quiet German countryside. The trees along the bank begin to thin just slightly, revealing a wide, moonlit path that follows the gentle curve of the dark water. The silver light catches the slow movement of shadows just ahead, not the shadows of giants or kings, but of four weary, honest travelers who have found their way to the water's edge to rest their tired bones. They are old, they are weathered, and they have been cast aside by the world, but they are together, their spirits undaunted by the long, winding road that lies behind them. The river whispers their names to the swaying reeds, and the cool wind carries the sound gently to your ears. On the riverbank, four old friends are waiting for the moonlight to show them the way. The wide, moonlit path along the riverbank reveals four weary, noble silhouettes, moving with a slow and steady resolve that matches the low-frequency, pulsing rhythm of the ancient night. First in this quiet procession comes the donkey, his heavy head bowed under the invisible weight of decades of honest, uncomplaining labor, his large ears twitching at the sound of the wind in the reeds. Behind him follows the dog, whose once sharp guardian bark has softened into a rhythmic steady pant that syncs with the cooling air. Then comes the cat, moving with a fluid liquid grace despite her silvered fur and the stiffness in her joints, her paws making no sound upon the soft earth. And finally, perched securely atop the donkey's broad back, is the rooster, his feathers catching the pale moonlight like the last glowing embers of a forgotten fire. These are the musicians of Bremen, though they carry no heavy instruments, but the resonance of their own voices and the steady hypnotic beat of their communal footsteps. They have been cast aside by a world that values only the new, the fast, and the loud, yet here, in the velvet shadows of the German forest, they find a new kind of perfect harmony. There is no hurry in their gait, no destination that requires haste. Each slow hoofbeat and every soft paw print is a deliberate, grounding note in a grand symphony of companionship, a steady march away from the demands of the daylight whirl. You can almost hear the rhythmic hollow clop-clop of the donkey's hooves on the damp, yielding earth a sound so consistent, so predictable, and so grounding that it begins to pull your own wandering thoughts into a state of deep, hypnotic alignment. As they walk, the forest seems to lean in closer to listen to their silent, unbreakable agreement. They are moving toward a future they cannot yet see, but they move with the absolute, unshakable trust of those who have discovered that having nothing left to lose means having everything to share. The dog leans his tired shoulder against the donkey's sturdy, warm leg. The cat curls her long tail around the dog's neck in a gesture of quiet solidarity, and the rooster closes his golden eyes, sensing the direction of the night wind with a peaceful heart. This is the profound beauty of the quartet, a repetitive cycle of mutual support that requires no spoken words, no complicated explanations. They are a loop of friendship, a moving circle of spirits that find their ultimate strength in the mere physical presence of one another. As you watch them slowly vanish into the deeper silver mists of the woods, the rhythm of their journey stays with you, acting as a steady internal metronome that prepares your mind for the next layer of the dream. Their story is a gentle reminder that to be old is simply to be rich in memories, and to be slow is simply to be deep in the beauty of the present moment. The clop, 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 clop continues in the back of your mind, a steady anchor in the sea of silence. The road beneath their feet seems to stretch into infinity, a pale ribbon of silver dust winding between the trunks of the ancient trees. Each step they take is a release of a burden, a letting go of the roles they once played, the worker, the hunter, the mouser, the herald. Now they are simply travelers in the dark, and there is a massive sense of relief in that simplicity. The donkey's breath is a slow, white plume in the cool air, a rhythmic sigh that echoes the rise and fall of your own chest. The cat's eyes are half closed, reflecting the stars not as distant fires, but as familiar lanterns. They move as one organism, a single shadow with 4 heartbeats, drifting through the landscape like a cloud across the moon. The forest floor, covered in a thick carpet of pine needles and damp moss, muffles their transit, turning their march into a ghostly, weightless dance. You are invited to walk with them, to feel the same cool air on your skin and the same steady, unwavering purpose in your spirit. There is nowhere else you need to be, no other path you need to follow. The rhythm of the Bremen March is the only clock that matters now, and its hands are moving slower and slower, bringing the world to a state of perfect resonant pause. The silver mist of the Bremen road begins to shimmer and transform, turning slowly from the cool, ethereal grey of moonlight into a warm, heavy and saturating glow of molten gold. We find ourselves following a young man known only as Dummling, the one the world consistently overlooked and underestimated, who now carries a treasure beyond all earthly price, a goose with feathers of purest, radiant gold. This bird does not shine with a harsh metallic glare that hurts the eyes. Instead, it emits a soft bioluminescent radiance that seems to pulse in perfect time with the Earth's own deep, subterranean breath. The light it sheds is like the warmth of a setting sun captured in silk, casting long amber shadows that stretch across the meadows and turn every blade of grass into a filament of gold. As Dummling walks with a steady, unhurried pace toward the distant silhouetted castle, a strange and repetitive magic begins to unfold behind him. a sequence of events so rhythmic and predictable that it lulls the mind into a state of total, unquestioning acceptance. It starts with a simple, curious touch, a moment of human desire meeting a force of nature. An innkeeper's eldest daughter, drawn by the irresistible honey-like glow of the bird, reaches out to pluck just one single golden feather. In an instant, the air seems to thicken. As soon as her fingertips brush the golden plumage, she is held fast, her hand anchored to the bird by an invisible silken bond of ancient magic. There is no shock, no sudden jolt. There is only the realization that she is now part of the goose's journey. Then comes her sister, reaching out to pull her away, only to find her own hands fused to her sister's sleeve in the same shimmering, unbreakable loop. Then the third sister, then a curious parson, then a distracted sexton, and finally 2 weary laborers from the distant fields, each one joining the line with a quiet, resigned grace. One by one, they are woven into the fabric of the story, their individual wills dissolving into the collective rhythm of the walk. Imagine this long, undulating chain of people, moving in a slow, hypnotic procession behind the boy and his glowing golden bird. There is no struggle here, no frantic pulling or shouting. The magic is far too heavy, too ancient, and too peaceful for that. They move with a rhythmic swaying motion that echoes the movement of tall grass in a summer breeze. Step, sway, follow. Step, sway, follow. The constant repetition of their movement becomes a visual lullaby, a cycle of action that loops over and over again as they cross the rolling indigo meadows. The golden goose acts as a living lantern in the deepening twilight, its soft light reflecting off the trees and the path, turning the entire landscape into a warm dream of amber and honey. The people in the chain have long forgotten why they first reached out. They have forgotten where they were going, or what tasks they left behind. They are simply part of the rhythm now, a part of the golden flow that ignores the cold logic of the waking world. There is a profound, comforting reveal in the steady mechanical movement of this golden procession. You realize, as the figures blur into the soft focus of the distance, that every single step forward is a step further away from the demands and complications of your own life. This chain of people is not a prison. It is a profound release, a way to let go of the burden of the individual will and become part of a larger, slower, and infinitely more beautiful movement. The gold of the goose is the gold of the final sunset, the gold of the closing eye, the gold of the deepest part of the subconscious mind, where all stories are born and eventually return. To be stuck to the goose is to be freed from the exhausting necessity of choice. You do not need to decide where to go or how to get there. You are simply carried. You are simply following the light. The repetitive nature of the journey, the same measured steps, the same warm glow, the same quiet, synchronized breathing of the group acts as a final, heavy anchor for your consciousness, drifting you further and further into the quiet, sun-drenched depths of the dream. As the sun disappears completely and the stars begin to pulse with a steady white light, the golden glow of the goose becomes the only reality. The world around the procession is now a soft, dark velvet, but the path ahead is illuminated by that rhythmic, pulsing amber. You can feel the warmth of that light on your own closed eyelids, a heavy and soothing heat that relaxes every muscle in your face. The step, sway, follow rhythm becomes your own internal pulse, a slow and steady beat that drowns out the static of the day. The line of people moves like a slow river of light, winding through the valley of the mind, carrying all your worries, all your what-ifs, and all your to-dos into the silent shadows where they can no longer reach you. Everything is becoming fluid. Everything is becoming gold. The world is at rest, and you are part of the golden chain, drifting toward the silent center of the night. The clop-clop of the donkey's steady march and the soft rhythmic rustle of the golden procession begin to merge into a single unified soundscape of profound and total peace. The heavy warm air of the valley is now perfectly still, smelling of sun-dried grain, ancient cedarwood, and the sweet resinous scent of the evening woods as they prepare for the midnight hour. The golden light emitted by the goose begins to soften even further, expanding until it fills your entire field of internal vision with a comforting hazy warmth, a golden fog that gently obscures the edges of the world. The distant castle spires, once sharp against the sky, are now mere soft silhouettes, blurring into the deep indigo of the ether. All the sharp sounds of the world, the clatter of commerce, the heat of argument, the ticking of the waking clock, have faded into a distant muffled echo, like a song heard from across a wide and foggy lake. You are safely tucked into the center of this hypnotic loop, protected by the repetitive, ancient magic of the travelers. The journey no longer has a destination, because the journey itself has become the ultimate rest. As the golden light finally begins to fade into the deep velvet purple of the true midnight hour, the figures of the musicians and the golden followers start to dissolve into the soft, shifting architecture of your dreams. The dusty road beneath their feet turns back into the cool, mossy forest floor, and the golden feathers of the bird turn into the last dying embers of a distant, friendly hearth. The world is perfectly still, perfectly balanced, and perfectly quiet. The great sweeping stories of kings, mountain giants, and grand processions have all been told, and now the tired mind craves something even more intimate, something that resides in the smallest, quietest corners of the imagination. You feel a sense of massive leaden weight in your limbs, a comfortable gravity that anchors you to the present moment. The air you breathe is cool and rhythmic, a steady tide that flows in and out without effort. There is a final soft reveal in this deepening twilight. The smaller the story, the larger the peace it brings. We have traveled through vast forests and over jagged peaks, but now the horizon is drawing inward, focusing on the minute, the delicate, and the unseen. The light is no longer something you look at from the outside. It is a warmth that resides within your own chest, a slow-burning candle that keeps the shadows kind and soft. The loop of the clop-clop and the step sway has done its work, slowing your brain waves until they match the long, slow oscillations of the earth itself. You are drifting now, no longer needing the guidance of the donkey or the glow of the goose. You are floating on the surface of a deep, dark pool of history, where every ripple is a memory and every depth is a dream. The silence of the forest is now absolute, a thick and protective blanket that wards off the noise of the modern world. The trees stand like tall, silent guardians, their branches heavy with the weight of the night and the secrets of the centuries. Within this vast silence, your attention is drawn down, past the towering pines and the rolling meadows, toward the very roots of the grass. The great epic of the night is winding down, settling into the micro-histories that exist beneath our feet. The golden glow has narrowed into a single tiny point of light, a spark of curiosity that remains even as the rest of the world goes dark. It is a story about the strength found in the miniature, the wisdom found in the overlooked, and the grand adventures that can happen in the space of a single heartbeat. As the golden light fades completely into the soft indigo, we find a story so small it fits in a pocket. The golden, pulsating light of the goose has now narrowed and refined itself, focusing down into a single, tiny point of warmth that resides in the very center of a quiet, darkened room. We find ourselves in the presence of a story so small, so delicate, and so perfectly formed that it seems to exist in the hidden spaces between the long breaths of the world. Imagine a life that began in the soft, warm palm of a hand, a creature no larger than a thumb, born not of grand epic battles or high-throned decrees, but of a simple, heartfelt wish for companionship and love. Tom Thumb is a masterpiece of the miniature, a soul whose entire existence is a testament to the idea that the smallest among us often carry the greatest weight of wonder and quiet strength. As you look at him now in your mind's eye, tucked into the soft velvet lining of a polished walnut shell for a bed, you feel a profound sense of protective peace wash over you. The world around him is vast, built of giant wooden beams and towering stone hearths that stretch toward the shadows. Yet for Tom, every grain of dust is a shimmering gemstone, and every single drop of morning dew is a vast crystal sea. As Tom begins his slow, rhythmic journey through the familiar landscape of his father's farm, the scale of the world shifts once again, but this time it feels intimate, close, and entirely safe. To Tom, the individual blades of grass are like the tall, swaying masts of 1,000 wooden ships, and the purple clover flowers are fragrant, heavy canopies that shield him from the heat of the sun. You can feel the soft, rhythmic texture of the cooling earth beneath his tiny feet, a landscape of infinite microscopic detail that the clumsy giants of the world simply walk over without ever noticing. There is a beautiful quiet safety in being this small. You are a master of the hidden places, a silent traveler of the cracks and the soft shadows where the heavy, unpredictable hand of fate cannot reach. As Tom rides in the velvet ear of his father's horse, whispering soft directions that are followed with absolute silent obedience by the massive creature, we see the first true reveal of his journey. True guidance does not come from the loudest voice or the strongest hand, but from the one closest to the heart. The small dangers Tom faces as he drifts through the wide world are not terrifying. They are merely parts of a slow, unfolding cycle of clever escapes that build a deep, unshakable trust in the universe's natural balance. When he is swallowed by a gentle cow grazing in the meadow, it is not a moment of panic or fear, but a strange, muffled, and warm adventure inside a rhythmic cavern that smells deeply of sweet summer hay and fresh grass. From the warm darkness of the cow's stomach, Tom's tiny, persistent voice rings out like a silver bell, a small spark of consciousness that eventually leads to his peaceful release back into the light of day. Later, when he finds himself in the dark belly of a hungry wolf moving through the woods, he does not struggle against the shadows. Instead, he uses his steady wit, guiding the wolf toward his father's own larder, turning a moment of potential peril into a rhythmic journey back toward the source of his happiness. Each escape is a rhythmic pulse of problem and gentle solution, a low-stakes narrative that tells your brain the world is a place where everything eventually works out, where every dark place has an exit, and where every small, quiet voice is eventually heard and honored. The wolf's footsteps as he runs toward the cottage create a steady drumming beat, a rhythmic cadence that acts as a heartbeat for the story. You are moving with Tom, feeling the warmth of his surroundings and the absolute certainty of his success. There is no tension in his heart, only a quiet analytical focus on the next step home. This is the rhythm of the unseen, the power of the small to navigate the large without being crushed by it. You can feel your own body adopting this same quiet confidence, a sense that no matter how vast the world seems, you have a small, safe space that belongs only to you. The grass whispers beneath the wolf's paws, a soft shushing sound that blends with the wind, carrying you closer to the flickering amber light of the cottage window. The moment of reunion is the ultimate signal to your mind that it is now okay to fully shut down, to let go of the last threads of thought, and surrender to the deep. Imagine the giant, weathered, and warm hand of Tom's father reaching down into the darkness, not to grasp or command, but to provide a soft, living mountain for the small boy to climb. As Tom settles into the familiar pulsing warmth of his father's palm, the scale of the world finally becomes perfect and balanced. The father's hand is a fortress of skin and bone, a sanctuary of ancient love where no wolf, giant, or storm can ever reach. The touch is incredibly gentle, pulsing with the slow, steady, and subterranean heartbeat of family and absolute belonging. You can feel that same heavy warmth spreading through your own limbs. Now, a golden, leaden sense of protection that anchors you deep into your bed. Your father's thumb brushes Tom's head, a movement as light as a feather, sealing the journey with a promise of eternal safety. The cottage is now a silent temple of stillness. The mother has laid out a tiny, soft bed made of the finest white wool for Tom, and the air in the room is thick and sweet, with the scent of dried lavender and the fading blue smoke of the evening fire. Everything is back in its proper, eternal place. The shoes of the shoemaker are finished and resting on their shelves. The giants are asleep in their high, cold peaks. The golden goose has found its rest in the barn, and Tom Thumb is safe in the cradle of his home. The house is quiet, the stone walls are thick and protective, and the fire has burned down to a bed of glowing, rhythmic embers that pulse with a deep orange light. This is the end of the narrative road. There are no more hills to climb, no more riddles to solve, and no more paths to follow through the woods. The world outside the window has dissolved into the velvet, absolute black of midnight, leaving only this small, perfect circle of warmth and the steady, heavy breathing of a house at rest. As you drift closer to the final horizon of sleep, let the image of Tom Thumb's sanctuary be your last anchor. You are just as safe, just as protected, and just as cherished as the boy in the walnut shell. The silence of the night is your thickest blanket, and the long history of these ancient tales is your softest pillow. The air you breathe is cool, slow, and rhythmic, a steady tide that carries you over the final threshold into the sea of dreams. The fire in the hearth gives one last tiny soft pop before settling forever into the grey ash, and the darkness becomes a total, welcoming, and familiar embrace. The shadows on the wall are soft and still, moving only with the flicker of the dying light. You are home. You are safe. You are at rest. Everything is back in its place. The house is quiet. The fire is embers. The night is yours. The great iron-bound volume of the brothers' stories is slowly, weightlessly closing now, its heavy parchment pages settling against one another with a soft, final sigh that echoes through the stillness of the room. Imagine the dark, walnut-stained ink as it begins to dry upon the thick, cream-colored paper, the elegant curves of the letters and the sharp points of the ancient Gothic script losing their wet glint and turning into a permanent, silent part of history. The quill has been laid aside upon the smooth wooden desk, and the candle that lit the room for so long has been snuffed out by a gentle breath of air, leaving only a single, thin and silver ribbon of grey smoke to dance and fade in the cool moonlight. The study where these stories were gathered is now as quiet as the deep forest itself, a sanctuary of leather-bound memories and the grounding earthy scent of old paper and beeswax. There are no more words to be written, no more adventures to be charted, and no more voices to be heard. The ink is dry, the record is complete, and the comforting weight of the book is a solid grounding presence that anchors the end of your long journey. As the room fades into the background of your mind, the entire world we have built together tonight begins to slowly dissolve into a soft, weightless gray, mist, a gentle, cooling fog that carries no shape, no weight, and no sound. The towering, jagged peaks of the Tailor's mountains are softening at their edges, their cold stone melting into the soft white clouds until they are nothing more than a faint, hazy memory of great height. The golden halls of the palace and the humble, warm cottage of the shoemaker are drifting away into the distance, their walls turning into translucent silk that ripples in the night wind and then vanishes into the velvet indigo of the deep night. Even the characters, the brave little tailor, the industrious elves, and the tiny, clever Tom Thumb are stepping back into the long shadows of the imagination, their forms blurring into the rhythmic, dark shapes of the ancient trees. They are not leaving you, they are simply becoming part of the landscape again, returning to the deep, silent well of the subconscious where they will wait, patient and still, until they are called upon once more. There is a profound and weightless reveal in this final, graceful dissolution. The story is finally over, but the piece remains behind. The narrative structure, the sequence of events, and the logic of the tales have all fallen away like the dry autumn leaves, leaving only the pure, unadulterated essence of tranquility in their wake. You do not need to remember the intricate plots or the names of the travelers. You only need to keep the deep feeling of the safety they provided. The forest is gone, the river has flowed away, and the castle has vanished, yet the profound sense of belonging and the heavy golden warmth in your limbs remain as constant and true as the stars above. You are floating in a vast sea of pure, undiluted rest, a place where there is no before and no after, only the infinite, expansive now. The peace is not something you are visiting for a moment. It is the very air you are breathing, a quiet, internal power that has settled into the very marrow of your tired bones. Drifting deeper, quiet, still. Every breath you take is a slow, rhythmic wave that pulls you further and further away from the bright shore of the waking world. You are as light as a single white feather caught in a slow midnight draft, rising and falling with a grace that requires absolutely no effort from you. The darkness is not a void to be feared, but a soft velvet embrace that knows your name and guards your rest with a fierce and silent loyalty. The tension of the day has been washed away by the river, and the weight of the world has been carried off by the giants into the high peaks. You are left in a state of total blissful detachment, where the mind is as clear and calm as a mountain lake at midnight under a moonless sky, drifting deeper, deeper, quiet, still. The voice that has guided you through the deep woods is becoming a distant, muffled hum, a part of the wind and the trees, fading into the background of your own beautiful internal silence. The voice fades, but the silence protects you. The words have served their purpose, and now they return to the earth, leaving you in the cradle of the night. Within this deep and hallowed silence, there is a final, very low whisper of gratitude, a soft, warm breath of thanks to the ancient woods and the stories that have kept us safe through the hours of the night. You have traveled far tonight, crossing rivers and mountains of the mind, and your journey has earned you the right to a sleep that is as deep and as nourishing as the roots of the world itself. As you drift across the final threshold into the unknown, a hidden, gentle promise takes root in the fertile soil of your mind. You will wake up refreshed, feeling the light of a new morning, but remembering only the profound, magical feeling of this sanctuary. The specific details of the tails, the shoes, the giants, the golden feathers will be nothing more than a soft, golden blur, but the strength and the peace they gave you will remain in your heart like a glowing, eternal coal. This is your place of restoration, a history for sleep sanctuary that is always here, always waiting, and always silent. Whenever the world becomes too loud, or the day feels too long, you know the secret path back to the river and the mossy bank. You are entering the state of endless silver ambience now, a place where time has no meaning and the night is eternal and kind. The air around you is cool, the bed beneath you is warm, and the heart within you is light and free. This is the final blessing of the night. May your dreams be as vast as the mountains and as gentle as the shoemaker's silken thread. May you find the quiet cleverness of the tailor and the absolute safety of Tom Thumb in the quiet corners of your own spirit. The loop of the night is closing its circle, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. There is nothing left for you to hear, nothing left for you to see, and nothing left for you to do. You are free to disappear into the soft indigo fabric of the midnight hour, wrapped in the absolute unshakable certainty of your own peace. You will return here, to this quiet forest and this steady voice, whenever you need to find the stillness and the magic once again. The whispers are fading into the background now, replaced by the natural rhythmic song of the night that will continue its lullaby long after the voice has gone. Listen to the soft, distant rustle of the wind through the high, dark pines, a sound like the slow breathing of the earth itself in its deepest sleep. Listen to the faint, rhythmic patter of a cooling rain falling on the distant leaves, a percussive, liquid lullaby that washes the world clean of all its worries. These sounds are your guardians now, an endless looping forest ambience that will hold you in its arms for the many hours to come. The wind, the rain, and the deep, resonant silence of the ancient stone, they are all part of your rest, all part of your journey home. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. Everything is as it should be. Sleep now, in the heart of the history, in the warm arms of the night. You are the story, and the story is you. Sleep, sleep, sleep.